Good morning, everybody. Welcome to a new edition of our EIPA in Conversation With. We have taken advantage of the new technologies, of the facility we all have to use Zoom to organize these events already from the beginning of this year. It takes place every Thursday between 1 and 2 on different topics. I am Gracia Vara, the head of the European CAF Resource Center, and it's my pleasure to open up today this session on updating CAF in education, the challenges for education and training centers in the post-COVID period. It has been this one, the second organized event on EIPA in Conversation. We did have one in May, perhaps some of you were with us on that occasion, talking about CAF as a tool to promote resilient public administrations, because public administrations have been and are still under shock due to the pandemic, and we are all affected at all levels. But when it comes to education, we have our specific model of CAF, the Common Assessment Framework, and that is what we are going to be talking about. How CAF education is being useful, helping, creating an important impact in the education sector, and what are the things that need to be reviewed, revised for the present period. We have with us experts from different educational institutions, and our moderator, Sabina Bellotti, will be leading the session. Sabina is the CAF National Correspondent for Italy. She's a policy advisor and a major expert on CAF. So we are very thankful to Sabina, to all the participants for the opportunity to share with us your knowledge. So thank you very much, Sabina, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Gracia. Thanks a lot to EIPA that in the role of the European CAF Resource Center is taking care again with a new impetus, I would say, of what is going on at European level with the implementation of the CAF model. I ask to put on my slides. I want to introduce the field, giving some information that can be useful for the audience, because maybe not everyone is so familiar with the CAF, especially with the CAF and education. Can you please put my slides on? Anyway, the point is why we are talking about a CAF and education. CAF and education, what is it? CAF and education. CAF and education is the only personalized version of the model that has been defined at European level among member states that belong to the CAF network. That is one of the area in which the European public administration cooperates informally to exchange experiences and to create projects and implement projects together. So CAF and education was created after, of course, CAF was created. CAF is, as a general model, has been created in 2000. I cannot see my slides, Gracia, so I ask you if you can do that, because I understood that it was up to you. Otherwise, I have to open mine. But if you can, please.
Just a second, Sabina, 1 second.
Okay, thank you. Thanks a lot. So I was saying that CAF was created in 2000. And after a first phase of experience, it was discovered something very relevant. It was discovered by the member states working together in the CAF network that there were some specific organization making a major use of the model, and I'm talking about schools and in general all the organization involved in the education sector. And that's why originally in between 2008 and 2010, it took place the experience of personalizing the model for the education sector. They took place first at national level, involving some member states, and then it was taken a decision to create this cooperating at European level. And that's why a group of member states, of course the ones that were more fond of the use of CAF and the diffusion of the CAF in the public sector, together worked and created the first version of the CAF and education model. Still, there are no slides. I don't know why. I'm sorry about that. But the point is that the model itself, the general model, has one attitude. The attitude of the general model, the CAF as a general model, that is a self-assessment tool for public sector organization, free. Thank you about that. Please go on so we can reach the point in which I was in this phase. Okay, I didn't touch the element of the general model, but just in short, in very short, CAF is the total quality management model for self-assessment that has been developed by public sector for public sector, and this is why it is free of charge, and it is very well known and implemented in many member states at European level, and not only at European level. It is based on these three key elements, the principle of excellence that are at the base of the model, and the structure that is similar to the FQM model for people knowing this model. So there are a part of the model dedicated to make a check, organizational check concerning the criteria, so-called leadership, strategy and planning, people, and partnership and processes and resources that together with processes are the leverage to work and to create the results, the performance results of one organization. And CAF, inside the model, it is embedded a specific metrics of the model that it is based on the plan, do, check and act, the so-called the denim cycle, to be sure that every of the phase of one definition of one policy or process has been taken into account by people working in the organization. The next slide, please. I was talking about the CAF and education version, and I was telling to you when and why it was created an education personalized for the education sector. It happened in 2010, the first time, and involved Belgium, Greece, Italy, Luxembourg, Norway, Poland, Portugal, and Slovakia. But it is taken again place because we started recently the first updating of the model. It took place in 2013 in parallel with the updating of the general version, and now we are still working again in a revision of the model. There was an important point in this experience of using the CAF in the education sector. It was a survey conducted by Italy together with EIPA in 2014, and it was specifically aimed at discover which kind of improvement, which kind of took place in education belonging to, in organization belonging to the education sector. So I was saying that the findings were very promising, and that's why we continue investing in CAF and education. Please, the next slide. The next slide is the reason why it was so relevant to create this, and I refer already to figures that demonstrate it very clearly. This is the graphic that you can see in the picture. Is the last survey, is the result of the last survey made by Portugal very recently, and you can see how big is the number in concerning the total figures of CAF users at the moment registered in the CAF European Center. And there is an explanation for that. Why especially in the education sector, the organization are so keen and so able to use the model. And this is because of the organizational structure that despite of university that maybe are more complex organization, are normally not so complex from the hierarchy, and the political character is not present. And that's why it's maybe much more easy, because everybody knows that to make an organizational check concerning one public sector organization, it comprised the political will of the managerial will to show externally, internally, and externally how it's working in the organization. And that's why schools, in general, they find less problematic to take this kind of decision and to go in using the model. And the other point is related with the kind of organizational culture of assessment and performance evaluation that is embedded in the mission, in the institutional mission of one organization working in the education sector. So this is an explanation. And please, last slides. What's happening now? Now we are updating again CAF for the alignment with the last general version of the model that has been defined during and presented and approved by DG at European level in 2020. So it's the so-called CAF 2020. And why it is important, this alignment? This alignment is important because the CAF 2020 reached the cooperation of member states working at that, reached a kind of very good results in simplification of the structure and the language of the model to make it easier and effective in implementation phase. And also we took into account a lot of news and novelty happening in the general context of the public sector functioning. And so especially at the level of the example, but also at the level of the sub-criteria of the model, we improved a lot the focus on this element very relevant for public sector organization functioning, that is digitalization, agility, sustainability, innovation, participation, and diversity. Of course, the point of resilience, it was touched, but it was before the real impact of the pandemic that we made this work. So there is the right direction, but maybe in the future we could do something else. Anyway, we are now working to align the CAF Edu. This is a cooperation that is taking place in between Portugal, Spain, Belgium, and Italy. And that's why, and we go now to the very more relevant part of this conversation to talk about which are the benefits of implementing CAF Edu for this sector's organization. We have three colleagues coming from three different member states, Isabel, Carmen, and Luisella from Italy, Portugal, and Spain. They have been presented in the EIPA website, and I asked them to immediately enter in scene and present very rapidly themselves and saying which is the relation with the CAF model and why they decided to use the model originally in their organization and which were the main benefits for this implementation. Please, Carmen, the floor is yours, starting with Spain.
Thank you very much, Sabina. It's a real pleasure to be with you today. Well, I've been working in IES Valle de Leyva since 2011, where I have been the quality manager for almost 10 years. So going straight to the point, since 2005, we started doing disconnected tasks. For the first time, teachers were asked to fill in satisfaction surveys. It was our first attempt to obtain feedback from the educational community. Although we tried to exploit them in a proper way, making a great effort to optimize the information, it was disappointing not to be able to deal with such information because we didn't know how to. We didn't know how to go further. So it was in 2010 when the local Ministry of Education representatives presented us with the CAF model opportunity. At that moment, we saw the light at the end of the tunnel. All efforts were lost, treated in the PDCA cycle. The turning cycle was the key to fully understand what all our work was interconnected. Now our service results are integrated in the functioning of our school. So if you want to know the benefits, it's my time for talking about the benefits. Sabina, would you like me to talk about the benefits now?
Sorry, I was not connected with the microphone and I'm not connected with the video. I don't know why. Yes, you can go on.
All right. So a consequence, perhaps a natural consequence of believing in our quality system is that we also work as a team. as very cohesive organization. The difficult situation has been faced with much greater resolve than most secondary schools in the region. Well, when in March 2020, the lockdown was decreed almost overnight and schools were physically closed, the management team very soon reached a solution. There was a quick adjustment by means of online meetings. All the different management meetings were held without any problem from the very beginning to the end of the academic year. As far as the strategy and planning is concerned, we would like to highlight that all the processes which are followed in a normal situation were revised and adjusted smartly. In just a few days, we had the new local government guidelines to work with and our own processes adapted at the same time. It turned out to be quite simple to revise them and cross out those procedures which were impossible to carry out. No extracurricular activities, no teaching virtual learning, no paper but digital documents, no face-to-face meetings, but online sessions with families and students and so on. Dealing with
Maybe we can move to the next speaker. And
yeah, today is not a lucky day. I'm sorry, Grazia. So I will ask Luisella to continue presenting themselves.
Hello. Yes, I'm in the self-assessment team, and I have leadership roles in our school, which is a technical high school in Tuscany, in Italy. So I deal with, for example, international projects and the digital dimension at the school and so on. And while the coordinator of the CAF group is Cristina, who is here with me today. Okay. So the main reason why we started using the CAF model is because we had a head mistress, Mrs. Cristina Cosci, who was very interested in innovation and improvement, continuous improvement. So it was her who created a group of people, a group of teachers and also administration staff who followed some courses to learn about this CAF model. So she was able to create a motivated group, and the school started to follow the model and to self-assess itself in 2009. And we have continued using the model, and we have achieved the ECU label in 2011, and then again in 2013 and 2018. So it was a very fruitful decision because we could start a process of reflection which involved all the aspects of the school context. Starting from the organization to the leadership, to the internal and external stakeholders, to the strategies for improvement. And also it involved all the teaching and non-teaching staff, and also the partnership. Our school has a lot of partnerships in different fields. Yes, so it was really useful to learn how to improve the quality of the activities we do, and also how to monitor and evaluate the results. So it was really a very interesting path that we have covered over the years.
Luisella, would you like to tell us something about what happened during the pandemic time, as it has been?
Yes, of
referred.
course, yes. During the pandemic, the CAF model supported us in dealing with the emergency, with an unexpected situation, because the strategies we used to evaluate and also to monitor the school activities were really useful to start immediately to adopt strategies to deal with the unexpected. For instance, we set up a group of teachers who wrote down a sort of manual for distance learning. So we gave instructions and also advice to the whole teacher community on how to start organizing distance learning. And and we also set up a group who supported the teachers and students who had problems in dealing with this new type of educational activity. For example, I don't know, a lot of students had forgotten their passwords for the video conferencing tool, and we had a team helping them to reset their passwords, but also we gave advice to the teachers on how to use some digital boards, on how to use Google Classroom and so on. And it was very quick. So starting in a few days, we were able to
react.
Yes.
Yeah, it's the same kind of indicator of the promptness of the reaction. It is a signal, an indicator of the capability of the organization to be resilient, because I mean, resilience has a lot to do with the capacity to react to obstacles. And so I will give the floor now to Isabel for a different point of view, because Isabel is a representative at university level. So let's listen what it was happening in that context. Please, Isabel, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Sabina. Thank you all for joining us, and thank you to the EIPA for this invitation. It's wonderful to be here to share the experience of the Institute of Social and Political Sciences within the University of Lisbon. Indeed, we chose to pursue the model of CAF education at the time when we needed, like Carmen said, to choose a common ground on which to base our quality management system. So we chose CAF because, first of all, we are a public institution. Secondly, because it is free of charge. Thirdly, because there is a specific autonomous model for education. And besides, something which has not been mentioned here from our perspective is the flexibility of the model, because we are at the higher education level. So our worries and problems and concerns do not necessarily mean that we are on an equal standing with other public administration institutions, and secondly, with other levels of education. And so the flexibility given by this model was instrumental in our deciding it, to adapting it to our institute. Also, we wanted to have our management system audited and credited with and by external entities, because in Portugal we are starting to perceive quality as essential to monitor at all levels of activity, not just teaching and learning, but also with the relationships of other stakeholders, internal and external stakeholders. And so with the CAF model, we can periodically monitor and get feedback from the stakeholders of our community, and our community is a large community. So we have 4,000 students, not to mention faculty and non-teaching staff and other stakeholders for training processes of the students and caterers and so on. And this CAF model is accepted by the Portuguese agency that credits the quality systems of universities and also the course offer at universities. So we rehearsed the model, we were successful with the model, and so we adopted it to ourselves, so much so that we actually wrote an article for the CAF book to celebrate the 20 years of CAF and sharing our experience with it, and also laying future paths that we would hopefully discuss here today. During the pandemic, so going fast forward to the benefits, what were the benefits? So like all institutions, we also had to go from one day to the next, from presence, conventional classes to digital and online models. And we have semester assessment of quality. That was not changed because we are already dematerialized, digitalized as far as the assessment of quality is concerned. So I can say with you know, real institutional joy that there was no breakdown in the auditing of our quality monitoring during the pandemic. And besides that, because the model is flexible, we gave other inputs to how we would like the community to respond. So immediately it was very possible for us to lay surveys, to identify students' needs, to identify problems, and also to ask feedback from the community as to us in the presidency of the Institute and the managerial board of the Institute. We're dealing with the pandemic. Are we taking the correct measures and steps? What does the community have to say? Because the CAF model is this communicative approach. So all the stakeholders can get their ideas and share their ideas. And so it was possible then to devise a guide to deal with COVID, the pandemic that was being constantly fed and rearranged whenever the policies at the national level would change concerning the pandemic. So we were on the spot instantly, and this is what the model has so good to offer. It's the flexibility and the instant overview that we can get. I don't know if I answered the questions, but I would be willing to,
perfectly. I would say perfectly, and perfectly in line. I'm particularly institutionally happy, as you said, because originally when we created the CAF, the Common Assessment Framework, I had this kind of aging responsibility to have been there when we defined the model originally, and the aim, it was exactly that one. The aim, it was exactly what has been called later on to enhance the administrative capacity of public sector organization. I mean, the European Commission discovered this after years, but the idea, it was to help public sector organization to be able to face the natural change that is common in the life of every public sector organization, because I mean the needs are constantly moving and changing. This is not related only with the pandemic situation. We are facing something that is changing because aging of the population, immigration, climate change, everything. So we need to be prepared, to be resilient, to be able to react. So this is really a kind of happiness and joy that I always feel myself with when I talk with people working with the model, because I mean, they found a way to work with more motivation, with more satisfaction, because you can see results out of the implementation of the model. This is the point. So thank you, every one of you. But now the difficult question. Now the difficult question is, what can we improve in the CAF and education model? Of course, you can make a choice, because I mean, the model is as complex as every model. There are the criteria, there are the sub-criteria, there are the examples. The examples are the most changeable part of the model, because they are based on an analysis and an exchange of practices that we normally inside the EIPA network and the CAF network constantly make year after year, semester after semester, because we talk about which are the problems that the context is creating to public sector organization to deal with. And we know which are the practices, the best practices, the innovative practices to face the problem. So these are the added value. This is the added value of the examples inside the model. But anyway, in your mind, which is the first aspect related with your own experience, which is something that can be really improved in the features of the model. And I give the floor to you this time, Isabel, first. So we go the other way around. Please, again.
In Portuguese, we have a saying, the last will be the first. And so this is a case in point. To us, what is important is that the model keeps on being flexible, so that we don't have layers of noise to how it is modeled and structured. And another thing that we would like to see more is the issue on sustainability, but not just environmental sustainability, but the sustainability of institutions, the sustainability of social systems, so that we can have a more holistic approach to sustainability and not just see it as a fad or a trend or something that is now here for all of us to talk about and that we link to environmentalist causes. But sustainability is also the people working at the institutions. And what the model is showing us right now with the surveys is that people are very, very much worried and interested in seeing changes in the conciliation of private spheres and work spheres of their lives. So we would like the model to have that in mind. So to go on with this flexibility and address sustainability as also sustainability at the personal laborer level. So that would be our main worry or main concern, I think.
Thank you, Isabel. I don't know if I got exactly your point, but first just listen to the other and then we can reflect together to understand what you mean, if the same it is a kind of feeling that also the other are experiencing. So Carmen, to you now.
Well, maybe my contribution will be more prosaic and it will be really brief. Honestly, after thinking about this question, we don't really have a clear answer. Perhaps the only aspect we would need some revision is that the fact that all the criteria have the same value, despite the fact our school considers criteria 9 key performance results as its main goal, and where they have to be successful. In a certain way, this idea can be hard to be understood by a school whose main purpose is to have good external or internal results. This is the only idea we can underline. Sadly, we have no more suggestion for this question.
Okay, Carmen, and then Luisella, please go on.
Yes, our main suggestion is about examples in general, because sometimes for some criteria, the examples seem more appropriate to other types of organization and not to schools. And for example, in criterion 5, the examples could be more in line with the school context. And also another thing that could help the school is that supporting more the school in the design phase, in particular in the development of a monitoring and evaluation system, is specifically identifying indicators and targets, because schools are not usually used to working with indicators and targets. So maybe give more support to the schools. And another thing, we think it would be good to have a digital platform where we could upload the improvement plan in order to be able to update the monitoring actions carried out every year. So instead of sending the document and then sending it again after 3 years, being able to work on a digital platform and to update the information about
you mean
the
Luisella, you mean a national platform, a platform managed by the National CAF Resource Center, you mean? Okay.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, this is something related with the
then,
Italian experience. Maybe then I will explain. Okay.
Yes. And then we find the sub-criterion on technology management a little bit cumbersome, and we think that the technology aspect should be a sort of transversal thread across, running through all the criteria instead of a separate criterion. And then also regarding social responsibility, we think that it could be good to have some more examples deriving, for example, from good practices related to schools in particular.
Okay, thank you, Luisella. My first comment is that you can see how complex is the organization, complex is the model to deal with the organization, and there are different perspectives in seeing and using the model. And this is, of course, normal, and this is a kind of also indicator of how the experience in using the model can be enhanced over time, because Luisella said that in her organization they went through the CAF external procedure more than once time, and this is related, I can tell that because I know the system, the Italian system on that, because they as Isabel said concerning the university in Portugal, we have a specific part of the education sector at high level managed by regions, and they ask accreditation for quality for the organization, for the schools. And that's why schools like the one in which Luisella is working use to go through the procedure to get an external feedback concerning the way in which they are implementing quality in their organization. So there are different perspectives, but I want to ask again to go back to what Isabel said, asking her to elaborate a bit more, because all the other aspects, and I ask, of course, the CAF, the European CAF Resource Center, Grazia, and her collaborator to take into account all the elements that has been underlined by the colleagues now, so that we can have this to be put on the table of the revision that is taking place in the CAF Education at the moment, because it's a process, an ongoing process. But I want to elaborate a bit more, Isabel, if you can, about what you said concerning a kind of specific perspective on the new problematics, the new problems, if I understood well, that has been happening in the public sector organization, at least in your university, concerning the effect of the pandemic. If I understood well, there are worried concerning the way of working, the way of living. So if we can go back for the moment to Isabel, that I don't see her.
I'm here. I see you all very well.
So Isabel.
So
is it was it something connected with the pandemic specifically, or what?
It gained momentum with the pandemic, although it was already underlying, and we were already taking steps to address that with creating flexible schedules for our collaborators and all that. So what I would like to elaborate better on is that when we are revising a model, and if we are faced with the question of sustainability, social responsibility, it's like Luisella said, we need indicators. And we are a little bit in a brainstorm of ideas. What should the indicators be as far as sustainability and social responsibility are concerned? Because to us, sustainability is also a matter of social responsibility, and vice versa. And so we want to check this we want to use the model because it is flexible, as I said, to check this, but which specific indicators should we be targeting? And so that should bring more objectiveness to the model. I don't know if I made myself clear. We need a clear-cut indication of what indicators should we be looking for in our institutions to tell us whether we are addressing the issues of sustainability and social responsibility correctly, first, and secondly, if what we think is sustainability and social responsibility is in line with what the CAF thinks it is. So it would be a more objective kind of working or elaborating on those concepts and providing indicators for them.
Yeah, I follow your idea when you said that when we talk about sustainability, and we did since years in CAF version, because it's not only starting with the 2020 that we are talking about sustainability inside the model, but it is mainly something related with the ecological sustainability, with I mean the sustainable development goals mainly focus on this idea of the climate change. But I see your point when you are trying to connecting sustainability with social responsibility, because we have to be prepared. This is at the end resilience of the organization. We have to be prepared to take the responsibility to face the future, to face and to be able to measure our capability. And that's you say we need objective indicators to do that. I will ask to Luisella and to Carmen if what they think about, if they have any suggestion, and which is the kind of feeling that they have in using the model, at least recently during the pandemic time, concerning sustainability and social responsibility also. Because I think this is a very important point, and I thank you, Isabel, for underline this aspect, and I will bring back with me in the CAF Education revision table this point. Please, Carmen and Luisella, if you want to say something concerning this point, or Carmen, if you want to elaborate a bit more your practical point that you said before, because maybe I didn't get it very well.
Yeah, when we are talking about what we did in the pandemic situation, yeah, I was interrupted by Wi-Fi, but we were talking about results. Yeah, so I was saying that according to results, the quality management team established 3 different types of indicators. So those indicators which were not affected by the pandemic situation, those which were influenced, but we decided to measure just to see how the situation was going to affect the institution. And finally, those indicators, which we definitely decided not to take into account, and they were a few indicators. But the most striking aspect is that internal, external, and coexistence and satisfaction results remained unchanged despite all. So okay. We think that the model is working well when we have this kind of interruptions in our day-to-day work. This is what I wanted to say.
Okay, and Luisella, do you want to add something else concerning?
Yes, we are also very interested in the issue of sustainability. So I think what Isabel suggested is a very interesting suggestion, because having indicators and targets for sustainability would be very useful. At our school, we carry out different projects focused on the topic of sustainability, and we have continued working on that even during the pandemic period. So carrying out projects online, for instance, with Oxfam, involving also students and stakeholders in these activities, so that we started in present and then we carried on online during the pandemic. So I think that's a topic that should be a little bit transversal. So and also, yes, we agree with the fact that it would be useful to have indicators and targets for sustainability.
Okay, so we need to explore more the field of indicators related with the model, specifically interested for CAF and education sector, and this has to be involving specifically the issue of sustainability and social responsibility. I understand, of course, that for CAF and education sector, the point of social responsibility is a very high point. I mean, because we need not only to know how to function in respect of the needs of the different stakeholders involved, but also working as education sector organization, we need to know which kind of culture we have to spread concerning sustainability and social responsibility. So they are really very, very relevant for the sector. But we have last 10 minutes, and so I first of all ask to Gracia if there are questions. Otherwise, we will go on with my last question to you.
There are no questions. There have been some comments thanking for the ideas proposed, but no questions. So I think we can continue with the next block.
Okay, Gracia. Okay, so my last question to you is, of course, the main question that I normally ask to people working with the model is, which are the lessons learned and which approach would you suggest to new CAF user? Again, I want you to promote the model because I know by experience that there is nobody better than people having used the model capable to explain the potentiality and the value of it. So please, again, the floor is yours. This time I will start with Luisella.
Yes, okay. For us, the keywords are team, training, and communication. So if we had to give some advice to schools or organizations wanting to join the CAF model, we would say that it is fundamental to work with a team, with a motivated team. So it can't be the work of a single leader or coordinator, but you need to form a motivated group of people who believe in what they do and who are open to change and to improvement. The second aspect is to take part in training sessions, so to learn how to use the model, especially, for instance, in Italy, the trainings provided by Formats are really useful. So start with training the people. And the third aspect is communication. So try to communicate what you're doing to both within the organization and also with to external stakeholders. So disseminate what you're doing so that the community inside of the school, but also the stakeholders outside the school know what's happening.
Yeah, what's happening. They have to be informed. I completely agree. So yes. Isabel, to you now.
Well, thank you very much. We are great supporters of the CAF model because we've got accreditation in other models as well. So CAF is our pillar, but we also have accreditation with other models. And so what I think I would suggest to someone new to this was teamwork, as Luisella just said. We have a department which is just devoted for quality. And so, so that we take some steam off and some pressure of other departments. Then it's to communicate well with our community why we are doing this, why we are asking people to be monitored and surveyed and giving feedback. So why we are doing this, what are the strengths that this brings to the institution, so that everybody is on the same track. And so teamwork, communication, and the second thing is a sort of reflection or proposal to CAF, so that and we also do that in this book. We also say this: there should be more intercommunication between models, because what I realized with other at other instances is that when I say we use the CAF model, people say, okay, but you could use our model, or you could use another model. So a little bit more intercommunication between models, so to at least standardize some of the practices or common goals. But communication and teamwork for me are fundamental. And secondly, what I would say to someone starting is choose CAF, because of all the models, it is the most approachable and most flexible. So if you want to start with something which is already quite elaborated, and besides it is an international model used and recognized at the European level. So if you want to do something nice, which is already recognized and structured and put into place, you can use CAF. But that is an aside. So I would say that, choose CAF because it is already implemented. It has already a solid base. It has been studied. And it's easy to implement, actually.
Yeah. Thank you, Isabel. Carmen, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I agree with Luisela and Isabel, teamwork and communication. But I would add another one, and this is a utility of the performance. Everything that an organization decides to do must be useful. In our opinion, this is the most relevant principle in CAF. If what is done is not useful, something is wrong, or perhaps the school is not understanding the model.
Thank you, Carmen. Thank you, Carmen. You went rapidly to the point. Of course, CAF helps a lot to understand where you can improve. And this is possible when you discover when you are losing time or resources in doing things, in managing processes, not in the best possible way. So it's perfectly correct what you said. But I would like to add another element to your elements that I agree completely. And the other elements is not only to be an European brand, but to belong to a network, an European network, because we are taking care of the model continuously. There is this possibility to exchange practices, to make projects together, to survey the implementation of the model. And this is the added value of the European CAF Resource Center managed by EIPA. And this is the added value of the EIPA network. And I want to finish this conversation informing everybody that we are not only revising the CAF for the education sector, but we are also cooperating to an important survey that involves also EIPA as one of the actors. That is a survey concerning the relationship in between the use of CAF and the resilience in the organization. This has been a decision taken by the European Commission. DG Reform is financing this project. That is coordinated by OECD. So this is something, Isabel, that can create a kind of more connected relation in between CAF and other recommendations on quality and models for quality that are being used at European, but not only, also at OECD level. So the value of the model has been recognized by very relevant stakeholders of the financial kind of responsibility of helping and supporting public sector organization at European and OECD level. So this is a kind of very good indicator of the not only of the reputation of the model, but of its effectiveness. Otherwise, we won't be talking after more than 20 years about CAF. I'm a bit maybe tired about that, but at the same time happy. And so thank you again. It is 2 o'clock, so we are perfectly on time to closing this session. I want to again thank you, Carmen, Isabel, and Luisella, for your very effective role of explaining why CAF education is needed and why we need to do our best to revise the version, the new, and to create the new version of the model for you. So thanks everybody, and thanks for the audience. And thanks, EIPA.
Thank you very much, Sabina.
Thank you all.
Bye from Rome. Bye from Rome.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you
Next
very
time.
much.
Ciao.
Thank you.
Bye.